best. Don't waste anything. You know, if you wasted even a crumb of bread or a crust of bread in wartime, you'd be prosecuted. I grew up in North London, High Barnet, and I shall never forget the local paper one week. Mrs. So-and-so of a very respectable area fined 5 shillings for wasting crusts of bread. Oh, I don't think she ever held her head up again. And certainly we were all completely shocked. I don't know what to say. Oh, dreadful. So you see, wasting is something that we now can think about as well as during the war years. That again is make do and save money. So all the way along, look at ways in which you can save money by buying cheaper food and turning it into interesting dishes. You'll find a lot of interesting food there, because you know of our forefathers, my grandma, my mother, my grandmother, great-grandmother, and yours as well, were expert in producing good family meals without spending too much money. And again, you all look so jolly healthy. I bet every single one of you cooks at home. Anybody who doesn't? Yeah. Because I have to persuade people, you know, I haven't time. No time to cook at home. Rubbish. Those of you who nodded when I mentioned the war, what were we doing during the war? Surviving. What were we also doing? Working. Didn't most women in the war work extremely hard? They had families to bring up. They had jobs to do. They did extra jobs, fire watching, women's voluntary service, all sorts of different things. And then the other thing that is thrown at me quite often, I'm not being horrible about it, but I don't believe these alibis exist. I'm a single parent. My mother was a single parent. When I was 12, my father died, and she had 3 children to bring up, so she went back to teaching to support us. But we always had good meals. So that is, make do sensibly. Think about doing it at night if you're working in the day, so that it's ready to go in the refrigerator, ready for the next day. There are ways around it. I can see by your faith is I'm preaching to the converted. So all I ask and beg of you, when you have anything to do with the young people who don't do it, sounds as if I'm condemning the young. No, not a bit of it. I have a great admiration for all the young people do today, but I wish they'd be a little more sensible about the way they feed their families. In summertime, and I bet some of you too, used to do your eggs brown. And if you had somebody clever who could do a scene, they were already. Now I had one of the biggest surprises in my life, and I'm surprised I didn't fall down the escalator in Harrod. I was in charge of the Ministry of Food Bureau at Harrod. And I was going up the escalator one day, and a voice behind me said, "You have done your stocking dye very well." I thought, I knew that voice. Who is it? And I turned around, and do you know who it is? Marlene Dietrich. So I can claim to have my stocking I don't know whether my legs or simply just the advice she gave there. Now I'm going back to the wartime. I wonder how many of you have memories where you said to yourself, or you said to your husband, or you said to your children, when the war's over, we will have a lovely new cooker, or I will have a new kitchen, or we'll get a refrigerator. Did you know in 1939 that less than 25% of people had refrigerators? So it was their ambition to have them. The war ended, everybody said, right, now we're going to get the refrigerator, now we're going to get the cooker, now we have the kitchen done. And you were told, no. This, I think, is something to remember with pride. All the things that were made when the war ended were for export. Now, many of you grew up with slogans. Careless talk costs lives. Dig for victory. Eat up your crusts, etc. But this is the saying that I shall remember the rest of my life because it was so scary. In 1945 and onwards, moreover, Britain had beaten the Germans, and we were told, export or die. We were so desperately hard up, we'd given all our money to fund the war, that we hadn't enough money to buy all the things we needed. And so we really had to settle down and export and export and export. And this is why I hope a few traders might be eavesdropping today. This is what happened then. Our manufacturing people switched over from guns and tanks and things like that and started to make cookers, refrigerators and kitchen furniture. And you know, it was only at the end of the 1949, that's not very long after the war, is it, that we were able to start buying what we needed. There was a limit on what we could spend, but we could still buy them then. So please, manufacturers of today, get going and repeat what they did in those 40 years and get us really very strong and proud of what we have and what we can do. Jamie Oliver and I are good pals, and on many occasions he said, you know, the British are overweight. I say, stop. You cannot say that. What you should say is some of the British are overweight, some of the children are overweight. And television, radio and newspapers are inclined to do that sort of thing, aren't they? Oh, the whole of Britain is overweight. What a load of nonsense. And some people are. And if they are, let us help them with sensible food to lose those extra few pounds. They'll be better, they'll be fitter. Also, two interesting things. Going back to saving fuel and going back to cooking easily and quickly. Again, a question for you. How many of you have a pressure cooker? Hands down. How many of you use it regularly? Hooray! And those of you who didn't put your hands up, do you think if you looked in the attic or you looked in the cellar or you looked at the back of that cupboard, you would find one? Now, I launched pressure cookers at the end of the 1940s. We needed them then because fuel was leverageable. We had cuts all over the place. So if you wanted to make a soup, you didn't want to take 2 hours, but you wanted to take about half an hour at the most. So they were a godsend. And you know, with rising fuel costs, they could still be a godsend now. So those of you who didn't put your hands up a second time, get it out.